It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Wednesday, June 14th, and so happy for you joining us. And we are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Health is Happiness with Yuen Yu, the word study on the early Christian church, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? Yes, it is Wednesday, and we have an awesome service tonight, so hope you guys are looking forward to preparing yourselves to receive the message, the words of God. Now, if you haven't yet, leave a like, leave a comment, build our community. Really happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other. And I'm very, very excited. It's already the middle of the week. The week is going by fast with a great message. And the last several days we have left before the 70-day repentance condition is over. All right, so it is Wednesday. How was your Tuesday? The week is chugging along. Some may feel it's been a long week already, and some may feel it's super short, but I hope you are running along together with the Lord, and I am super happy and excited. Wednesday came by super fast for me. It is really, really fast, and I'm just excited to be doing this Wednesday podcast. A lot of things that I was thinking about, especially during this week, so I'll go over some of that a little bit later too. Especially with the Wednesday messages, I always tell everyone, keep praying for your leaders, and I think it's something very, very important. Our leaders, our leaders are not Sunseam, right? They're not the ones who are receiving the word, and to be able to take this word and to make it into a Wednesday message is not an easy thing either. But I really hope it's something that all of us can pray for them, give them good feedback, and help them to improve and be able to preach with the fire of the Holy Spirit. And I think, for me, there's there's the speaking skill, right? There's a speaking skill that really, really helps a sermon. But I think the most important thing is the speaking skill is important, but it has to be coupled with the fire of the Holy Spirit. There is nothing different or better than when you hear something coming from the Wednesday message or the Sunday message and it just, it clicks. It hits your heart. You feel the inspiration, and the person may not have even said it in a very, with the skill of a great speaker, but because the Holy Spirit's working through the speaker, you'll hear this sentence and it will just strike you. And you're like, wow, okay, yeah, that's so true. This is about me. This is about my life. So make sure you always pray, especially for the Wednesdays, making sure that your head leaders will have the fire of the Holy Spirit with them when they're preaching that message. All right? So, I got something to say. I saw this in the news and I was laughing. Okay? I was laughing. Remember, I told you a week ago or 2 weeks ago, there's this comedian in Singapore. Her name is Jocelyn Chia, and she made some jokes about the airplane that went missing in the Malaysian airplane that went missing, and she's she's in the news again, and I think this is a big joke. I found this to be ridiculous, and remember guys, I'm coming purely from the Western perspective, but Malaysia is seeking Interpol to help track down the New York-based comedian who joked about the missing Malaysian Airlines flight MH370. So she grew up in Singapore, but she's from America. She's a stand-up comedian. She has the Western mentality and mindset, right? So she's born in the US, grew up in Singapore, and she's being investigated under laws related to incitement and offensive online content, police are saying. What a joke. I can't believe this is actually a real thing you're going to do to a comedian, right? Her joke, she's done this set, right? She's done this comedian set, comedy set about joking around. She said over 100 times. And it was only last week she posted it online. And then there's protests from Malaysia, an apology from Singapore. I thought it was ridiculous. It's a stand-up comedian, for crying out loud. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, are you guys going to do that to Chris Jansen too for his Provicom? Like, he's joking about the stuff about what's going on in Providence. And that stuff, like, when he first started his jokes on, like, Providence, it was, like, not even a month after, right? So on Tuesday, so we're talking yesterday, the Malaysian National Police Chief said that an application was going to be filed with Interpol to get Miss Chia's full identity and latest location. I don't know. I was laughing that these police people have that much time. Like, honestly, guys, when I was in Malaysia, one of the things that police do is they bribe people. They do. It's a regular, they actually bribe, like the police bribe, like I actually had it happen to me where they're like looking at me, waiting for me to give them money so that I can go off, right? And then here's the police going after a comedian, right? So she, her stand-up set, like, well, it was done in Manhattan. It wasn't even done in Singapore. It wasn't done in Malaysia. And of course, in the routine, it talks about the rivalry between Singapore and Malaysia. Like joking around that Singapore is now first world country while Malaysia is developing still. She joked about like the Malaysian airplanes that can't fly because, that one went missing, right? And then, one of the jokes she said, like, I thought it was quite funny, is like Malaysian Airlines going missing. Not funny, huh? Some jokes don't land. It's a joke, right? So there's an uproar in Malaysia from the stand-up comedian. It was removed by TikTok, who cited a violation of hate speech. I thought it was ridiculous. TikTok's ridiculous too. All of it's ridiculous. So I'm going to say that it's a joke that Malaysia is even trying to use Interpol to find her for that. I think it's a joke, right? I'm talking strictly from a Western perspective, but Malaysia doesn't have better things to do than to find a comedian from America in a comedy club. Finding Interpol. There are so many problems in every country, and I don't think going after a comedian it's not top of the list. For me, is like, if you don't like the comedian, just don't watch the comedian. What you're doing now is you're making the comedian more popular. Now everyone's going to watch the set. Because it's the Streisand effect, right? It's you tell people don't watch it and everyone's going to watch it. Oh, this person said all these bad things about Malaysia. Now everyone's going to watch Jocelyn Chia. She's going to become even more famous. She can make even more money. She's going to have the last laugh. I don't get it. People make fun of Canada. Right? They even made a song on South Park called Blame Canada, right? They make fun of Canadians saying sorry all the time, right? People make fun of the US even more. But no one's going out to Interpol to get get these comedians that say bad things about Canada and the US. What a joke. For me, I think it's okay. I'm like, come on. Who cares what someone said in a comedy club? Does it really matter, Malaysia? Really? Is that big? Get out of here. Get out of here. I looked at it so weird. Like, why would you even try it? She makes fun of an airplane. Do you know how long ago that airplane went missing? Like, this is what makes it even more funnier. This airplane that went missing in Malaysia was 9 years ago. Really? You're going to be upset at something that people make jokes of 9 years ago? Where Chris Jansen is making fun of the Providence situations a month after. For me, I'm gonna. There must be a girl in charge of this inquiry. There's gotta be, because girls remember everything. They recall incidents whenever they fight with someone like 9-10 years later. Like, don't you remember that time 9 years ago when this happened and this? Guys don't remember that kind of stuff because we don't care. The flight went missing 9 years ago. There must be a girl in charge, right? What, you can never joke about it even after 9 years? Gosh, right? Malaysia's a female country. They remember everything. Oh gosh, I did it. Oh, I started a ruckus. Right? Malaysians gonna hate me. The girls are gonna hate me. I might as well just go all in. It's just oh gosh. Oh, that's my rant of the day. But I want you guys to be honest with me. Malaysians, if you're listening to this, like, I know that this is the Malaysian government doing this, and I know that a lot of people complained in Malaysia, but did you complain? Do you care about this? From the Western perspective, strictly Western perspective, right? Or maybe everyone else in the world besides Malaysia perspective. For me, I just don't get it. You can't make fun of something that happened 9 years ago? I think that's kind of weird, right? Because that means that Chris Jansen can never do a joke about what's happening in Providence. Like, never. But we all laughed and we all enjoyed it, right? So, just to make things a little bit fair, if there's any people out there from Malaysia that disagree with me, I would love to hear why. I would love to hear why. Yeah, because it's a comedian in a comedy club. They've done it multiple times, but now, because it went on online last week, everyone's like screaming about it. So, either way, I thought that was one of the funniest things that I saw in the news. And because, I'm close to Malaysia, I've been there for like several years. I just thought it was very interesting how people get so into something like that. I don't think it's worth, like, I hope this comes out on Joe Rogan and stuff. Like, they all start making fun of it, because it doesn't make any sense. Right? This person's American born stuff in Manhattan doing this in a comedy club. I thought that was crazy. Either way, I just wanted to rile up the audience just a little bit to get some more comments in my section. I'm looking for those girls. They're going to be like, how dare you say that? Girls remember everything. And you guys are going to probably remember what I just talked about today about girls. And you're going to bring it up later on in the future, like 5-6 years down the road. Do you remember, Sky, that last time you were on MSD, that time talking about Malaysia being female because they remember everything? Oh, I remember. That's what's going to happen. I can feel it. Oh, okay, either way. So, yeah, either way. So I found that that was a funny thing. I was looking in the news just to see if there's anything in there that I could talk about, and that's the first thing I saw, and I was just like, oh, so ridiculous. Either way, that's only my opinion. It's my opinion. You can put in the comments if you think it's ridiculous or not, but I think comedy's free to talk about anything, and if you don't like it, just don't listen to it. I don't see why you'd have to go to Interpol. Oh, online hate speech. That's not hate speech. That's just funny. That's just funny, to be honest. Either way. Okay. So right now, the comment section is going really, really well. And there's a lot of good comments out there and opinions on certain issues. And right now, I think the biggest thing that people talk about the most is actually the pride issue. Right? Both guys and girls are in the comment section writing about guys' pride, and what kind of pride do girls have also. And I think Julius brought up a great point, is if you want to see what guys' pride is like, go watch them play casual sports. It's not casual, right? Because casual sports, there's no benefit, like no one gains anything. It's all just pride. It's straight up a pride game, right? So if it was just about health, then no one would care who wins. But even in casual sports, guys care. We really do. And it's usually you'll see it. Guys are the ones that swear each other, even in Providence. They'll swear or they'll fight and they'll argue when we're playing sports. I seen it happen in Korea. And girls are usually the ones that are disappointed in the guys, like, why are you fighting? It's so petty. You guys are fighting about that? Come on, guys, let's just play and have fun. But the thing you have to realize is, for guys, it's only fun when we win. That's what fun is to us. That's what the guy's pride is like, right? Like, I saw the perfect example of guy's pride. Gordon Ramsay, the famous chef from the UK? He has this show called Hotel Hell. And these are hotels that are, going bankrupt and stuff because they're just, they're terribly managed, whatever it is, right? And there's just one episode I watched called, it's about a hotel called the Juniper Hill Inn. Watch that one. That is straight up pride of man show, right? You're going to see it in full action. And then, like I told you before, when do people kind of realize and get out of it? It's when they hit rock bottom. And you're going to see in that show, in that hour show, This guy hits rock bottom, and then he gets totally humbled by God, and then you see him completely change the way he is. Right? And that's kind of the cycle you're going to see in men sometimes, especially people, men in position of power. And if you're a guy and you watch this, Hotel Hell, Juniper Hill Inn, if you are a guy, you will look at the situation and say, "Wow, that's so crazy they're like that." But then on the other end, the guys would think, "Oh, but I totally understand why it's happening." Like, you know why it's happening. That's if you watch just that episode, you're going to be like, "Man, why are guys like that?" And the guys will look at it, laugh, think it's crazy, but also understand at the same time. So if you want to see a guy's pride in full action, go ahead, watch that Hotel Hill, Juniper Hill Inn, and you're going to see what a guy's pride is like. But I'm very, very grateful and thankful that people are actually discussing and going over these points and writing their comments, because I think that's what kind of makes it a little bit more healthy. Yeah, it does. And the more we think about it, the more we talk about it, the more we can kind of work on ourselves too. And we kind of get to see the reality of ourselves, especially guys. When we talk about it, we're going to be thinking about, "Oh man, I was so prideful at that time. And then I was so prideful at this time. And then I was so prideful at this time." You're going to see it all the time, right? So I think that's something that just watching that one show, you're going to see what a guy's pride, like how far it can really go. All right. I also had a very interesting question the other day. Remember, I reported yesterday about the trial for those six women that are aiding and abetting, and 5 of them like pleaded not guilty, and then it was only like Kyla that pleaded like guilty to everything, right? She said everything is true, and the question is like, some people, like a couple people are asking me, why would she say that, right? And for me, when people were asking like, "Oh, why would she say that?" It was actually very interesting for me, because I had to, in my head think to myself, "It's like, I got to go through a mental exercise on this," right? Looking at the reasonings, right, of why, like, how can someone actually all of a sudden just go full out, right? And remember, mental exercising is about whether it's true or not, like what are both sides about. But my thoughts on this is very interesting because I've worked with her when she was in IMD also. And, we kind of got to see, what happened from last year when it came to marriage and stuff. There was that big thing that happened where she was apparently supposed to be marrying some guy from America and stuff like that too. And, there was just a bunch of things that just happened. And I was thinking to myself, like, well, how did everything get to this point here where now it's like she's not even on the same side as like KJS, aka Joan, right? They're not even on the same side. Like, she's like against her too. So that's what makes it even weirder for me. It's like, whoa, like what happened? What flipped the switch? And like a couple questions that come to mind is, her coming out and saying all these things came out super late. Like really, really late. She never started saying any of these things until like the trial was already ongoing. Like we were already like 5 months into the trial. Netflix was already out for 2 months. And the thing that's interesting is she never said any of these things to be true until she was accused of aiding and abetting. She went to court, and in front of the judge, she kind of went all out. So, that's why in my head, the question is, why did she only talk about it like this and become so extreme only after she was detained and questioned by police and went to court? Everything was already out. Everything was already out by that time. Like, so far out. Why did she all of a sudden do it at that time? Right? So, this is just my personal feeling. My personal perception is, well, if you're going to go to court, meaning you're going to be in danger of going to jail, right? So, maybe, it's possible there's a plea bargain or something to save herself from more prison time, right? Because she never said anything. And even, like, what you guys have to understand is, I think it was in January or February, she already testified on behalf of Sunstein in the trial that's going on right now. So she testified for Sunstein, right? And then several months later, all of a sudden, she's saying the exact opposite. And, her actions is very interesting because she is not on, like, KJS's side. She's obviously not on Sunsteam's side. It's like she's on a different side. So now you have like 3 different sides going on. And it kind of, when I look at it, it makes it even harder for the prosecution, because now you have her saying it's all true and admits it, but then the 5 others are saying they never saw anything with their own eyes, and they didn't aid and abet because they didn't know if they didn't see it happening. They didn't know if it was true or not, right? But it's, how are the courts going to take all this information where people are saying yes and no, and now we're in a situation, it's like, wait, something's really weird here. Like, can you imagine what the public opinion is even now? Right? So how are people supposed to take all this info when the majority say, oh, no, we're innocent, and then one says, no, it's all true. And they're kind of like, it's like that Bible verse where Jesus says, a kingdom, what is it? A nation split against itself will never stand. A house against itself will never stand, right? If there's infighting inside your own house, it'll never stand, right? And it looks like that's what's happening on the other side right now at the moment. And for me, it's like, yeah, this stuff is happening. And I think all of us are pretty safe to say is like, we're not really in any like anxiety mode or like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Like we're way past that, right? So when I was looking at this stuff, I was like, yeah, let's see what happens. Like for me, like there's just a lot of things that we're just waiting for just to see more information come out. Like, right now in a Sunseams trial, we're waiting for the courts to argue about the audio file that was submitted, right? Is it going to be submitted or not? We're waiting for the aiding and abetting trial that just started, and the next trial is on the 21st, which is quite confusing with 5 pleading innocent and 1 pleading guilty. Then we have KDH. We don't know what the outcome of that is because, there's some issues now where he was asking money from CGM, like $2 million. Public opinion is starting to change. Possible lawsuits against him at the moment, right? And one of the things that the media is talking about KDH is he just vanished from the media, right? He was on the media every single day, but now he's completely hidden, right? After the people are finding out things about him when it comes to settling and asking for money, and like there's a lot of different things going on against him right now. So he was on the media every day, but now he's completely hidden. There's a lot of people wondering what's going on. And then of course, the last one is we're also waiting for the money embezzlement trial for KJS and other members too. So when we look at all these things, there's just a ton of things. We're just kind of like, we can't change it. We can't help anything. It's all we can do is pray. Like we got to go about our own lives. We got to pray for it during the pre-dawn, pray for it during the times we need to pray. But there's nothing we can, like, I don't know how many people are actually worried about this anymore. We're just kind of praying about it and see what's going to happen, right? We can't change any of these things, can't impact anything physically. And the only thing we can do is spiritually through prayer. Right. So for myself too is, even though a lot of stuff is passed, I'll like I'm doing in Provi in the media every week, I am going to be keeping you guys up to date if there's any like relatively special or news that's coming out. But all in all, the best thing we can do is prayer. We got a couple things we're just waiting for down the pipeline. And I think there's nothing really we can just like say like, oh, this is what's going on kind of thing. It's just, this is it. So I hope it's something that, all of us, I do believe, and I think if I were to ask for comments, I think most people have been over it for a while. Like we're not like as like shocked. We're not like, oh my gosh. We've kind of moved on, right? And it's just good to know updates so that we can pray for each situation better. And that's the best thing I want to do for you guys also, right? So I hope it's something that all of us can really, really think about more and more. And I hope it's something that we will, open our hearts and our minds to, knowing that this is the history of God. And, there's going to be a lot of rough bumps along the way, and it's okay, right? Whenever these things, it happens. These things happen not all the time, but these things are going to happen. And, the people who are going to regret the most are the ones who are making snap judgments from small pieces of information, right? The ones that are not going to regret are the ones like us who are just waiting. Like, yeah, I understand. Nothing came out yet, so let's move on with it, right? And when it comes out, it comes out. But until then, I don't know why you're basing your entire life of faith decision on things that are not fully developed or we don't have full information. right? So I'm really, really thankful and happy for all of you guys out here. Like, let me give you this one massive confession. Not massive. This is totally not massive because I talked about this before too. But for me, over the last like 3-4 years, the one saving grace I have is actually doing this podcast. It actually saved me, to be honest. It helps me to organize my thoughts. It helps me to think more reasonably and rationally. It gets me to think more deeply about the word. It gets me to pray about certain things too. And it also shows me what's wrong with my life kind of thing, and the things that I need to change and my thoughts that I need to change too, because, we're all in this together. We're all relatively at the same level, right? So for me, I am just super thankful for this podcast because it saved me. During the pandemic, it saved me. Yeah, in the beginning, it was kind of weird because I'm talking into thin air when I'm recording this. Like right now, all I see is my wall and my computer screen. That's it. That's what I see right now at this moment. And I'm just thankful that this is here because of this, I'm able to survive this difficult time. Like I thought at the beginning, I actually thought that this podcast saved me from the pandemic and being just alone all the time when I'm this super social extroverted guy. And I was like, oh, this saved me, right? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, this actually saved me during this chaos. It really made me think deeply, made me think more clearly too. So this is one thing that I am, when I think about what God has done for me, especially with this week's message about the good points, God has saved me through this podcast. He really, really has. And it's one of the things that I look forward to doing every single day. I look forward to the comments. I look forward to reading the comments. I look forward to people texting me and just talking about the podcast. And I love it. And it actually makes my conversations more exciting because now that I listen to like the conversations I have with people, it's so amazing because people have such great insight that it inspires me. Oh, I should talk about this on my podcast. And it kind of opens my eyes. And I'm sure it's opened a lot of other people's eyes out there to the things that we should be thinking about even more deeply. Yes, I am childish and immature. And I do say stupid things all the time, just like I did before about the Malaysian comedian. I say stupid things. I do. And I admit it. I have like the level of my thinking is probably at the level of a Milky Way. And that's why I get along with them really well. But besides that, I am thankful that you would listen to someone like me. So I'm thankful to you guys too. All right, on that note, let's move on to our first break of the day.
Show him that you want it though. He can show you where you wanna be. You gotta put in words that'll be unseen. Look, and it's just like that. Take it to the golden city just with a snap. You don't even gotta trip, no, we got your back. All you gotta do is sit back and relax. There's this love between you and I that is so strong. I don't wanna ever lose it, then I'll be alone. But if I leave his arms, I wonder. I'll be sitting all alone just to ponder. Make up your mind and act as you should. I'ma show you we can be the greatest dude that ever stood. Living with the Lord every day is like my paradise. If you leave your worries and concerns to him, you'll be alright. Really wanna live with happiness and hope. You gotta live with the one you love the most. And don't forget that even on darkest roads, just find the Lord and grab your heart. Control your deeds. A pretty paradise right from the start. Paradise. All the night brings darkness. You're like the sun, yeah, you always shine so bright. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. Together we're the greatest. Just like the moon and the stars, we light the night. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. The weather's fine, the temperature's cool. 7 on earth, cause I'm with you. Ain't nothing better when we live forever. When we make us to be one true love. Birds of a feather flock together. And it's just like that. Give you my love, cause I don't hold back. Pour me your love, cause I know you got stacks. This love is real, cause we got it like that. Sandy walks on the beach, summertime. Feel the heat, that's a love paradise. Holding hands, cool breeze, cloud 9. Make heaven together with you and I. Sandy walks on the beach, summertime. Feel the heat, that's a love paradise. Holding hands, cool breeze, cloud 9. make heaven together with you and I.
If you wanna live with happiness and hope, you gotta live with the one you love the most. And don't forget that even on darkest roads, just find the Lord and grab your heart. Control your deeds, a pretty paradise right from the start. Oh, oh.
Paradise.
All the night brings darkness, you're like the sun, yeah, you always shine so bright. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. Together we're the greatest, just like the moon and the stars, we light the night. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise.
He can take you where you wanna go. He can take you where you wanna go.
He can take you where you wanna go.
He can take you where you wanna go. He can show you what you wanna know. He can show you what you wanna know. I have realized I'm not alone, because living with you is like my paradise.
All the night brings darkness, you're like the sun, yeah, you always shine so bright. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. Together we're the greatest, just like the moon and the stars, we light the night. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. All the night brings darkness, you're like the sun, yeah, you always shine so bright. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. Together we're the greatest, just like the moon and the stars, we light the night. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise.
All right, so let's get into today's word study, today's second segment. And every single Wednesday, we have the Bible word study where, we either go into the books of the Bible, the backgrounds, origins, political background context and stuff like that too. And also sometimes I do go into some biblical history, right? Maybe not in the Bible, but say the early Christian church. And that's what I want to go over today. And today I found this really cool article about 5 features that made the early church unique. What does that mean? It means it made people, because it was this unique, it made people want to join Christianity, right? So this is a very, very interesting article. This is written by Tim Keller. He's a very, very famous pastor. And I remember Tim Keller. He was also in New York at one point too, but very, very famous. But he is someone that did this article on 5 unique features of the Christian church. And I think this was something that I thought was very beneficial for us to think about our history right now too. So let's get into it. So in the first 300 years of the early Christian church, there was persecution, right? There was more persecution than any other religious group during those first 3 centuries, right? One of the reasons for this is because they refused to honor other gods or worship the emperor. And they were seen kind of like exclusive, right? So you got to think about this too, is they were seen as too exclusive, too narrow, and a threat to the social order. And I don't think that's any different than what we see now, is people would say, oh, aren't you guys too exclusive? You don't allow people to come in, you don't do this. But yeah, that's what Christianity was like at the very beginning. We refused to do what the culture, what the country wanted us to do when it came to religion. Refused to honor other gods, refused to worship the emperor, and that's how people viewed Christianity. Too exclusive, too narrow, and a threat to the social order. So, here's where it gets interesting is, if Christians were seen as offensive or too exclusionary from circles of influence and business and sometimes put to death, why would anyone want to become a Christian in the first place? Like, if you saw all this happening, why would you even say, maybe I should be a Christian? And there are several books that you can read that talks about the first 3 centuries, about why people would want to become a Christian in the first 3 centuries of the early Christian church. And interestingly, when you read some of these books, you're going to see that one of the big reasons why people want to join Christianity was it was kind of like this very unique social project, quote unquote social project, right? They were completely different from the community, like a different community. They were counterculture to everything going on, and they were offensive yet attractive. So here's the thing is we're going to go over today is what made the Christian community so attractive even though they were persecuted and killed, right? So the basis for this unusual like social project of Christianity was it gave people a really unique identity, right? Like because in the past, right, before Christianity, religion was simply an aspect of like your ethnicity or national identity. Right? So if you're from this city or you're from this tribe, you're from this nation, you worship the gods of that city, of that tribe, of that people. Basically, your religion was assigned to you back then, right? It's just, you're born here. Okay, then you're Muslim. You're Buddhist. You're this. Why? Because you're born there in that country. But the one thing that Christianity brought into, let's just say, the human psyche, what made people think more deeply for the first time was the concept that you get to choose your religion, regardless of your race, regardless of your social or financial class. And Christianity also radically asserted that your faith in Christ became your new deepest identity, right? And even though it became your new deepest identity, it did not wipe out your race, class, gender, whatever it was. Instead, your relationship to Christ demoted those to a second place. And what does that mean? Think about how amazing this is. Because if you think to the shock of Roman society, Christians, whether slave, free, highborn, right, rich or poor, whatever your race, whatever your nationality, we're now equal in Christ. So you can see how that becomes something very, very appealing to people, especially when they're split up in classes and you can't get the same benefits as someone else, right? And this was a radical challenge to the social structure and divisions of Roman society. And from it, we're going to take a look at 5 unique features that came about this new identity, right? Why was it so appealing, even though they're being persecuted and killed? So let's get into the first reason. The first reason is the early Christian church was multiracial and experienced a unity across ethnic boundaries that was startling, right? So, if you look at like even the leadership of the Antioch church is just one example. And throughout the book of Acts, you see a remarkable unity between people of different races, right? You look through Acts chapter 13, Ephesians chapter 2. Ephesians chapter 2 is actually a testimony to the importance of racial reconciliation as a fruit of the gospel among Christians. So this is something that's very, very appealing. Imagine you didn't have to worry about race and stuff. You could just have friends everywhere. You wouldn't have to worry about those things, right? The second big unique feature of the early church was a community of forgiveness and reconciliation. So as we said, Christians were often excluded and criticized, but they were also actively persecuted, imprisoned, attacked, and killed. But Christians taught forgiveness. They withheld retaliation against opponents. And it's like, imagine you're in a culture that's about shame and honor. That's what the Roman culture was. You're either in shame or honor. And vengeance was expected. But this was unheard of, right? That Christians didn't seek revenge. They didn't seek retaliations. Christians didn't ridicule or taunt their opponents, and they didn't repay them back with violence. And that's something we look at like, that's something that was very appealing to people at that time. They were different than everyone else. The third unique characteristic of the early church was its hospitality to the poor and the suffering. So it was expected to care for the poor and one's family or tribe. Christians, promiscuous help given to all poor. So can you imagine promiscuous is usually like, they're, going around to any type of woman, right? Or man, right? That's promiscuous lifestyle. But their promiscuous is they didn't care if it was their tribe, their family, right? Or race, anything else. Other races, other religions, as taught, like say Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan. One thing about the early Christian church, famous for hospitality to the poor and the suffering. It didn't matter where you're from. And they said it was unprecedented. Even during the urban plagues, right? Christians characteristically didn't flee the cities, but stayed and cared for the sick and dying of all groups, often at the cost of their own lives. And that was a big thing. And that's something that attracted a lot of people. The fourth unique characteristic of the early church, it was a community committed to the sanctity of life. Now, I'm not talking about abortion because abortion was dangerous and really, really rare back in the early church days. And a more common practice, like this is something that happened back then, was called infant exposure. So what does that mean? It means any unwanted infant was born and were literally thrown onto garbage heaps to either die or be taken by traders into slavery and prostitution. That was kind of their form of abortion. And what Christians did, they saved the infants and took them in so they wouldn't be held in slavery and prostitution. So, this was a very attractive thing for many people in that type of society that didn't agree with those things, right? And the last one, which is, something that we have to think about ourselves too. This is exactly what Providence does also. The early Christian church was, it was a sexual counterculture. Now, what does that mean? So the Roman culture is very interesting because it of course, it has married women of social status, right? What do? They abstain from sex outside of marriage. The women don't do that. But it was expected that men, even married men, would have sex with people lower on the status ladder, like slaves, prostitutes, and children. And this wasn't only allowed, it was regarded as unavoidable to the Roman culture. And this was in part because sex in that culture was always considered an expression of one's social status. So sex was mainly seen as a mere physical appetite that was irresistible. And that's why for the men, they could just go off and do all these other different things and have sex with lower status people. And that was okay and often, like said, it was normal. However, when the early Christian church came in, the sexual norms were completely different. The church forbade any sex outside of heterosexual marriage. But the older, seemingly more liberated pagan sexual practices eventually gave way to stricter Christian norms in the future, right? When it became, they started to turn more towards Christianity. It took like 300 years. And the deeper logic of Christian sexuality was so different than everyone else. It saw sex not just as an appetite, but as a way to give oneself wholly to another, and in so doing, imitate and connect to the God who gave himself in Christ. Right? It was also considered more egalitarian, treating all people as equal and rejecting the double standards of gender and social status. So finally, Christianity saw sexual self-control as an exercise of human freedom. A testimony that we aren't mere pawns of or desires or fate, that it's an irresistible appetite. And when you look at this one, I thought a lot really deeply about this too, is Providence is very counterculture to the way the world thinks about like sex and relationships. We don't have like that dating, like we're all waiting till marriage and stuff. And like kind of like the early Christian church, they said, sexual self-control is an exercise of human freedom. That we're not just pawns of some predestined desire or fate. And I look at some of these things, these 5 unique features. If you take a look at these, very, very interesting. That this made it more appealing rather than less appealing. And I think that's something we do need to think about for our history too, as we start this new history. It's not about succumbing to how the world is, but it's become different, the light on the hill, right? We're supposed to be the ones that are separated apart from the world. And when you look at how the early Christian church, even though they were think about this, early Christian church was persecuted, they were killed, so many of these terrible things going on. For us too, same thing is happening to us, but are we hiding? Or are we thinking to ourselves as what? You know what? We have some unique features about us that the world would want, that they would be attracted to more than anything else. And I think that's something that we have to understand. See, the early Christian church, it didn't fit in with the surrounding culture, but it challenged the culture around it in love. And that, think about it. Christianity eventually had such a great effect, it became the state religion of Rome. So the thing is, could it happen today? And the answer is absolutely, if we're looking at it from a parallel perspective of the beginning of the early Christian church and the beginning of early Providence. And that's something I think that a lot of us should be thinking about. right? We should be thinking about more deeply and say, wow, if that's what it was like back then, where they're being killed and persecuted, but yet many people are still coming because they had these unique features that were so counterculture, but it's something that people actually wanted. And I think that's something that we should be thinking about also. All right? So it's a little bit short, but I think it's very, very interesting just to see what the early Christian church was like in these 5 unique features. And I think it's something that we have to think about when it comes to our churches also. All right? So there it is, guys. That is the Bible word study for today. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. So let's move into our second break for the day.
I can't understand the reason why they laugh and smile. They say they do not need the Lord to be satisfied. Without the Lord, I cannot breathe at all. Without the Lord, I cannot live at all. The world keeps chasing joy and happiness they think will last, but they disregard the Lord and His eternal love. Yet as for me, I only want His love. I only want to be the Lord's love. Without Him, I can't live on. I cannot live all alone. All that I breathe is for Him now. He's the center of my life. Though the whole world may change, still my heart will never change. Lord, without You, I cannot live on. Lord, without You, I cannot live on. You've become the reason that I live. Lord, I love You. Please stay by my side forevermore. The Lord lives in my heart, and heaven lives within my soul. When I'm with the Lord, I feel like heaven's on the earth. Now because of Him, I have found eternal joy. I am blessed to know this eternal happiness. As the Lord's body, I know I can do anything. As a bride, I preach according to the will of God. So please, my Lord, grant me power, grant me strength. And please, my love, be with me until the end. Without Him, I can't live on. I cannot live all alone. All that I breathe is for Him now. He's the center of my life. If the whole world
All right. So let's get into the final segment for today. And of course, every single Wednesday we have Health is Happiness. And today we have Yuen Yu from Singapore. And she's going to be talking about soft tissue injuries. And this seems very, very interesting because soft tissue injuries, well, we'll get into this. And I think the older I've gotten a lot more soft tissue injuries than when I was younger, or I might have had it before, but I just fought through it. But I hope that everyone is going to enjoy this as we do every single week. Please welcome, all the way from Singapore, this is Yuen Yu with Health is Happiness.
Hello there, I'm Yuen Yu from Singapore, currently studying in physiotherapy. Today's topic on health is happiness. I'll be sharing more on soft tissue injury. I would like to give thanksgiving to Holy Trinity for this opportunity to share, Julius for this segment, and Pastor Sky for this podcast platform. As a disclaimer, this is general health advice, and if you do have a major soft tissue injury, do seek medical attention. So what is a soft tissue injury? Soft tissues include ligaments, muscles, and tendons. Common soft tissue injuries include ankle sprains and muscle strains. So this doesn't refer to the facial tissue that you buy at the supermarket, but these are all soft tissues in our bodies that help stabilize our various joints, such as our ankles, our knees, etc. Because of a trauma or an accident, or if we carry too heavy things too quickly, that can cause soft tissue injuries. So what happens when a soft tissue injury occurs? There is an immediate inflammatory response that presents as a pain, redness, and swelling, as well as a reduced function. I'll be using an ankle sprain as an example. So with an ankle sprain, you would tend to get pain, redness, swelling, and you won't be able to move your ankle that well. This inflammation is an essential process that initiates tissue repair. And in this process, there can be excessive bleeding and swelling which can delay recovery. Therefore, today I'll explain more about how you can care for a soft tissue injury such as an ankle sprain. Traditionally, treatment is guided by one of the most commonly known acronyms, RICE. Rest, Ice, Compression and Elevation. However, in the recent years, a new acronym, Peace and Love, provides more information on soft tissue healing by giving information in acute and chronic stages, meaning right after the injury and also weeks and months after the injury. I'll begin with P. P stands for Protect. This refers to in the short term, which means in the 24 hours to 2 days, it is beneficial to reduce movement. This reduces the risk of bleeding and aggravating the injury. While rest is important, prolonged rest can compromise tissue recovery. Therefore, we want to gradually use back the ankle, for instance, to walk again as much as our pain guides it. For our bodies, very interestingly, pain is a way that the body protects itself. Therefore, when an area is injured, the body sends pain signals to tell you that this area is injured, don't put so much weight on it, right? Don't use it so much. But as your body improves and heals, pain reduces, letting your body know that, hey, it's safe to move this part. It's safe to move the ankle, for instance. While the short period of time can be 24 hours to 2 days, if the injury is very severe, it may even require up to a week or more. Therefore, you may seek medical attention to know what is the severity of the injury, to know how long you should rest for. Moving on to E, Elevate. Elevating the injured limb higher than our heart can be beneficial in reducing the amount of swelling. I know it's difficult to always elevate your ankle, for instance, higher than your heart. Therefore, elevating it to your hip level is good enough. For instance, when you're sitting to do your work, you can elevate it on a stool. And when you're sleeping, you can elevate it on a pillow. A, avoiding anti-inflammatory. This can be avoiding anti-inflammatory medications or even icing, which does hinder the anti-inflammatory process. So this process, as mentioned earlier, helps in the healing. Therefore, If we eat medications to reduce the inflammatory process, it impairs the healing process. At the same time, ice also helps with reducing of pain. Therefore, if you have a lot of pain in the ankle sprain, yes, you are able to ice it as needed. But once it gets better and it's not that painful, you no longer need to ice it. Remember that if you want to ice, do not place ice directly on your skin. Use a barrier like a towel to protect your skin from the ice burn. And how long do you ice for? You can ice generally up to 15 minutes and do it as many times as you need to with a break in between each 15 minutes. C. Compress. Compressing is another useful way to reduce swelling. You may use tape, bandage, or this thing called Tubi grip. It's like an elastic compression or sock-like cloth that you can buy from any pharmacy. So make sure that it fits well and it's not too tight. Educate. Education is important because we need to know in order to do it properly. With recent research, it has shown that an active recovery approach is way more beneficial than a passive recovery approach. Passive recovery approaches include things like electrotherapy, manual therapy, acupuncture, and if we do this only, it has minimal benefits as compared to an active approach, which involves things like exercise, gradually using that joint, gradually using your ankle again. So after peace comes love. After the first few days have passed, soft tissues need love. So what is love? What does love stand for? L stands for load, meaning that gradually using the ankle or the joint as soon as you can tolerate is beneficial. There was an experiment done between a group that did early loading versus a group that rested a lot and delayed loading. The group with early loading had much more improvements in strength and recovered much faster as compared to the group that delayed it. So by gradually loading, your body, your muscles, and your ligaments learn how to support the weight of your body again. But remember, all of these have to be done in a progressive way, meaning not too fast, but to gradually increase. O stands for optimism. This means that as much as you do the physical part, the mental aspect is equally important. The brain plays a significant part in rehabilitation because by being optimistic, that helps you to recover faster. If you have certain fear factors, or you feel depressed, or you catastrophize that the injury is worse than what it is, all of these have shown in research to delay how much you can recover. While being optimistic, it is to also stay realistic of what is the general recovery time. Next, V, vascularization. As much as we do the strengthening and we gradually use back our joint, our ankle, if we do some aerobic activity, that improves blood circulation to improve recovery. Aerobic activity includes things like walking, cycling, jogging, and to do all of these things as much as we can tolerate. E, exercise. Going back to what we mentioned earlier on, if we exercise and do the right exercise strengthening for that part of the body, whether it's the ankle or the specific muscle group, then that can also restore how much we can move and restore our strength. And of course, similarly, use pain as a guide to know how much to progress at each time. With respect to what specific exercise, I'll cover more in detail what exercises we can do for each body part in another episode on strengthening. Lastly, how then do we prevent soft tissue injuries from occurring? One of them is to do regular exercise. Yes, that is the hard truth, that if we are strong on a regular basis and we consistently build our strength and how strong we are in our bodies, then naturally, how susceptible we are to injury will reduce. Secondly, is to be careful and to not do dangerous things unnecessarily. Just like the message on being careful on our own, let's exercise safety, whether we are doing our own exercise or whether we go out. And through this, we are able to prevent the number of accidents that may happen. Number 3 is to do exercise in a progressive manner, meaning that yes, while we are diligent in our exercise, it is important to not be overzealous, right, or over enthusiastic, but to always do it progressively and to do it in a gradual manner. With the above, if you would like to know more about any specific part, please do leave a comment below, or you may seek medical advice on it. I'll be happy to answer your questions as much as I know. Thank you once again, and may everyone stay healthy and active as we make our bodies and spirits in this history. With that, I've come to the end of this episode on Health is Happiness. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Yuen Yu, for another wonderful episode of Health is Happiness, talking about soft tissue injuries. Something I'm super grateful and thankful for, as I say every single week. Health is Happiness is people in the medical profession or studying in the medical profession. I think you guys are doing such an amazing job sharing all the knowledge we need, especially when it comes to the health of our bodies. Right? Like soft tissue injuries, when she's talking about inflammation and like soreness, like I think I've had that for like 6 years already. I've had soft tissue injuries for the last 6 years, but I am super thankful for all the advice and the tips that you give. And I hope that everyone else, if you have any more questions about health, go ahead. You can email them with the email we have in the description below, or you could write in the comments and we can also find some new answers for you there. All right? So there it is, guys. That is the end of today's Wednesday podcast. Hope you guys really enjoyed and had a good time, which means we'll see you guys tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know. I'm burning with desire